Welcome to another episode of Brothers Arguing Sports. I'm Zob. Across the Zoom is TD. And today we've got two questions. All right. Number one, should Herman's perfect game be celebrated by fans? And what is your favorite A's memory? The second question, it has to do with the fact that the A's in 2025 will be moving to Las Vegas. So before I let TD answer that first question, let me just specify why I brought up this question, because as you listeners know, if you like the show, yesterday I did my podcast post perfect game, and then I went on Twitter and everything was about the 2009 domestic abuse where Herman, remember at the CC Sabathia event, he was drunk, he slapped his wife, and what ensued, he got suspended 81 games eventually. And that's been the topic of Yankee Twitter world. A lot of prominent, mainly the main voices in Yankee Twitter are unsure how to celebrate. Oh, I'm happy, but I felt weird because of Herman. And there's all this ambiguity to this thing. So I'll let you answer, TD. Should Herman's perfect game be celebrated by Yankee fans?
Well, I think the perfect answer to that is look how the players celebrated. There was no muted celebrations, and that's what, as a fan, you got to take it as. I don't, I mean, I loved it. It was a perfect game. Of course, you should celebrate it. I get that he has his issues, but we all have had issues with players. In fact, of the team doesn't even like him.
Well, you
Voit
don't
had
know
issues.
that. You don't know that, TD.
Yeah, no, I do. I do.
You
Voit,
don't.
Voit and Cole said, "Listen, you don't choose your teammates."
I
When they
remember.
were prompted about him, so they even said, "Listen, we don't necessarily," in not those exact words. They basically said, "Listen, hey, you don't choose your teammates." That said, though, you make a separation like I did, like most fans should, and I think did, between the person and then just the other separate entity that is your team playing sports. And this is a guy in pinstripes. This is a Yankee pitching a perfect game. And you have to be able as a fan to enjoy it in that context. Otherwise, you can't enjoy anything. I mean, 24 perfect games in history. This is a huge deal. And I think anyone complaining about it or, trying to take your joy away as a fan just has to look at those guys on the diamond and those coaches in the dugout when it happened and Judge on the bench jumping around and celebrating. So, of course, it should be celebrated. It's a historic moment in baseball tied in with Yankee greats Larson, Cone, Wells. We all know these moments because they're iconic in Yankee history. So, great moment. Don't let the Twitter guys to the Twitter mob. I say look at the players for guidance, and if they were happy, you can be happy.
Well, here's where number one, I slightly I agree with your overall message. What I say to, because you have a fan, as a fan, you have a right to like or not like whoever you like, whoever player there are, right? So if you hate Herman, you can't stand him, domestic abuse, that's it. I hate everything about him. To me, 100%, you could feel that way. 100%. But my point is, sit out on Twitter on that issue that day. All right. You don't have to be questioning other people celebrating the perfect game. You could feel how you want, but I think just sit that one out. You don't need to infringe on people enjoying the game. And that's my opinion on it. So, anyway, so we both agree that if you're a Yankee fan, you stayed up, you watched that game, you have a right to celebrate. All right.
I
So,
mean, Dub, it's baseball overcomes certain. I mean, you're sitting there in the ninth inning and that ground ball goes to Donaldson, and it was not an easy one. You're you're not thinking about
that's
what
my
kind of a
point.
guy Herman is,
That's my
you know?
point.
And even
That,
if you do hate him as a guy, that's why we love that's sports, like
no, but
that moment overrides those things.
well, but yeah, but TD, it doesn't have to override them. You have every right not to celebrate Herman or any player, but
Yeah.
don't infringe it on other people who are celebrating. That's my opinion. Just
Well,
yeah,
Twitter,
Twitter
Twitter,
does that thing. But
Yeah.
it's my point is the prominent voices in Yankee Twitter world. I could tell they just felt they didn't want to show. It was almost like
Maybe.
you had to say something about the domestic abuse case. That's how I felt
Well,
reading
yeah,
it.
well, maybe they're just trying to, because when it comes time to express your opinion in public, on
Yeah, I
paper,
agree.
their first thought is, wait a minute, I can't look bad and
I
celebrate
agree.
this
That might
guy.
be it.
So a lot of it is probably just reputation preservation.
But it might be genuine as well. Who
But
knows?
what I would question to those people is, what were you thinking when that ground ball went to Donaldson? You were not thinking about what you're protesting to be on Twitter.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
mean,
If you stayed up late in that instant reaction, I agree. That's what I. But who knows? Who knows? People are entitled. I just think don't infringe it on others celebrating. All right, second question, because let's face it, the A's franchise has not been successful. All right, in terms of drawing fans, making money, so they're moving to Las Vegas. But for me personally, I hate this move, and because I'm an A's fan, and I'm going to go through a few reasons why. Because the second question is, what is your favorite A's memory? So for me, I'm just going to say it comes down to three. Number one, the ballpark. I've been to the ballpark. Shout out to Ian Hill, our Wednesday night dollar hot dogs. Chris Sweetland, we were there at July 4th fireworks. It is a dump, but I liked it. I just liked the stadium. So that's number one. Number two, the uniforms. This was what I also considered when answering this question. The white, the gold, the green, all crisp, just a beautiful uniform. A beautiful uniform. I'm going to miss it. I really liked it. But my favorite A's memory is the early 90s, late 80s, that A's team that went to 3 straight World Series, only won one, but they were a monster team and they were a very entertaining and cool team. I still think they're the coolest when you consider the success they had, the players, their style. We're talking Ricky Henderson leading off. How can you beat that? Right? And I could go through the whole team because they were the first big team I followed in baseball, and head by McGuire and Canseco, the Bash brothers. I mean, just entertainment in a nutshell. So out of all those things, that's my A's memory. My favorite A's memory is those early A's teams. They have a place in my heart. What about you, TD?
well, it's good because a lot of my reasons tie right in with yours, which is great. And I didn't know where you're going to go with this. I mean, the first thought is it's a sad, but it was an inevitable moment in baseball that like the A's, who to me were kind of the last bastion of old world baseball, kind of baseball in the 80s. And, just Oakland in general has just gotten phased out of pro sports. They lost the Raiders, they lost the Warriors. Now the final last team in that, yeah, decrepit dump, but like you say, you love it. And that's what I'll miss the most about it, is exactly what you said. It was almost like going into a time machine, those games when the Yanks would play them. And, a lot of history, a lot of baseball history happened in that building. Like you were saying, the Bash Bros, the Ricky Henderson stealing the base. Wasn't Dennis Eckersley like the first closer in history?
Well, Tony La Russa was the manager, and he was the one who, because before Eckersley, closers used to pitch
Exactly.
3 innings. So
Yeah.
Eckersley was the first modern day
So,
closer. Yes.
yeah, so you think back, you think of Eckersley with the hair, and it was kind of, yeah, the first closer. Think of Henderson stealing the base and rising it up. And then it kind of bled into the 90s with the Bash Brothers and all that. So you can't really tell the history of baseball without, and Ricky Henderson,
Greatest leadoff
the
hitter in history.
the GOAT. Like any all time team, you got to have Ricky as leadoff. I mean, greatest on base percentage or whatever in history, and the most steals in history. I mean, what more can you dream
Doesn't
for?
have the greatest on base percentage in history, TD, but yes, all time steals leader, all times walks.
No, walks. Sorry. I mean, there you go. What more can you ask for? The guy's going to walk more than anyone, then he's going to steal a base more than anyone. So huge, you know, they're a huge,
And don't
huge
forget
part.
the 70s A's, 3 in a row. That's very rare to do.
Yeah, so totally gonna miss them. It's a huge chunk of baseball is gonna leave with this team. And again, they're the last dump ballpark too.
Yep.
You know, you got all these new ballparks, and I love it when the Yanks play the A's.
Yep.
Uh, and to your part, you know, the dollar dogs, that ties into my whole thing about an era of baseball that's gone, where you could just go to a game and get that stuff. Where can you do that now? Now it's $6 dogs, $7 dogs, you know? And that's my favorite A's memory was something I watched and I'll never see again in baseball. And it could only be the A's because of how bad they are, because they were in Oakland, because no one went to the games. It was just a midsummer game, sweltering hot in Oakland, and the first baseline, you know, the prime seats. There was one guy in the entire section just sitting there with his shirt off watching the game. And that was a picture of baseball heaven. You know, throwing the dollar dogs. He's sitting there in the best seats in the building, probably costing 10, $20. There's no one around, shirt off, midsummer. I mean, that's heaven. And that's something we're never going to see again. And
Yep.
to your point on your point on the unis, I'm a Yankee fan. I think me saying the pinstripes are the best is tied into me loving the Yankees, but I think the A's is the greatest uniform in baseball. Those three colors are just magic. The gold, the green, and the white shoes.
And the bright white.
It's just nothing like it. So, you know what? And even the hats, you know, they had either the solid green hat or they had the hat with the yellow brim. It's just an awesome uniform. You know, great players, iconic players, and yeah, you know, it's gonna leave a big hole in baseball, but yeah, I'm sad to see him go too.
Yep. All right. Good stuff. We'll talk again.
All
Bye.
right, take it easy.